I call this regular meeting of General Committee for Monday, July 16th to order. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor King, that the agenda for the July 16th, 2012 regular meeting of General Committee be adopted. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under corporate services, there's one announcement regarding
Fire ban?
So I would like to add that so that the chief can make the announcement public and the media and the Cogeco can get that message out. It will help get the word out.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that, Councillor Kersey? Call the question on that amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The amendment is carried. And now to the balance of the agenda. Are there any other additions or changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. The amended motion to the agenda. We look forward to that report under other and new business corporate services. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do members have any pecuniary interest they need to disclose? Councillor Powell.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, under consent agenda items, report item 6.3, report CIS 2312. I will be leaving the room since this deals with a request as part of a consideration of businesses, and one of the businesses is owned by a relative of mine.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Duly noted. Others? Councillor King.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a pecuniary interest with item 8.1B, permissive grants, as I chair the committee of one of the applicants for those grants.
Okay, thank you. Others? Can that be noted as well? We are to have a delegation before us regarding open-air burning concerns, but I don't see that individual here this evening, so perhaps you're going to be invited to a future meeting. Thank you. In terms of the next is consent agenda items for separate consideration. May I suggest then that we deal with 6.3 separately? Councilor Papp can fulfill his disclosure. Other items to lift for separate consideration? There being none, thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the following consent agenda items be received for information. 6.1, report TR 26, 2012 to 2010 second quarter capital projects report. 6.2, report TR 47, the second quarter tendered projects report. And 6.4, report TR 45, 2012, the second quarter revenue and expenditure report. Any items of discussion for any of these reports? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask through you a question to our treasurer with respect to 6.1. And the item that struck me, Mr. Mayor, was listed under planning, and specifically the master plan for the town-owned lands, the study that was authorized by this council and I think was prioritized by this council, I see has now been deferred until 2013. I just wondered what the rationale for that was, and why we weren't able to proceed with that in 2012.
Madam Treasurer? Mr. Larimer.
I'm going to respond to that because I provided a response to Kerry staff. It wasn't Kerry specifically. I had indicated that the report hasn't started yet, and I think perhaps what they were assuming is that it was going to carry over into 2013. We didn't have a conversation on that specifically, but there were a number of planning projects, including the zoning bylaw, the master plan, and the Fenwick plan, that haven't started yet, but that they would be. We're intending to start them this year. So, if I can go a little bit further with that issue, specifically the master plan, I just want a preliminary indication from the region that they're going to accept the the conversion of the employment lands to the intended business park or designation that we've applied in the new official plan. Once we know where we are with that, even though the plan hasn't been approved, we can move forward with pursuing the master plan.
Okay, thank you.
So the
Counselor?
anticipation, Mr. Larmer, is that in fact, that study will be at least instituted in 2012 and most likely concluded in early part of 13?
I would hope that it could be concluded in 2012 still. It
Oh,
may run up to the end of the year, but I'm
Okay.
hoping that it could still be concluded this year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for raising it. Caught my attention as well. And if no one else asked a question about it, I was going to. So pleased to see that. Thank you. Perhaps we can amend the report to say, I guess, fall 2012 is what would probably be appropriate on that. Counselor Chris, do you want to make that
Yeah, I'll
the
s-
motion? Mr. Larmer?
If I may, that it would be initiated in 2012.
Okay.
I don't know what wording you want to put around that.
Trying to see,
And perhaps.
well, so
this
they
week we'll have
initiated
something to-
2000, fall 2012.
So perhaps, Mr. Mayor, this is a financial report, and the indication is that the expense would be incurred in 2013 as opposed to 2012, even though the study would be undertaken and begun in 2012. Is that correct? Is that the right interpretation?
Typically, no, the comment section is to say what the status of the project is. I think there was a miscommunication. I know that Mr. Lummer was in a meeting when we were trying to get the information at the last minute for the clerk's department, and maybe by what he had indicated, saying that it hasn't started yet, they just my staff member assumed that it was deferred. So this report comes quarterly, so we will make sure that it's corrected for the next report to say what the status is as well. And typically, though, we may not receive billings till very late this year, because the work usually happens first and then we receive billings later on, so.
So perhaps, Mr. Mayor, we could just strike deferred to 2013 out completely
Okay.
and just
Do you
leave
wanna
it at that. And then it's
How
still
about
on the book.
initiated 2012 would be a good, okay?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
So is there a, so on those three items in planning, is there a seconder for that, Councilor Papp, so that we strike the words deferred to 2013 and replace them with initiated, or initiate in 2012? Okay. Any further discussion on that? Call the question, all those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment is carried. Wait a sec, Counselor.
Oh, hang on.
We're still on these reports. Others to the various reports. Sorry.
I like that, eh?
That was good. Any other discussion, any other reports? Counselor Ribbiak?
Thank you. It's really just a comment with regard to form. I'm hoping that we're going to have these reports given to us electronically at some point soon. Trying to read these in the world's smallest font is getting to be really difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's coming soon. In the next, is that on this project here? Where is that on the project list?
Up top.
At the top.
Can you comment on that, please, Madam Treasurer?
I believe the email has gone out for the training session for e-agenda to begin the early September, so we're all anxiously awaiting to transfer over and reduce the amount of paper that we are using as well, and for our vision.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others on that report? I noticed that there was one item under Transportation Services, RD 25, which is the Highway 20 storm sewer to Marlene Stewart Street Park. It is listed as deferred 2013. Wondering if we can have some clarity, Mr. Manley, regarding that particular item.
I believe it'll be 2014.
2014?
Yeah, I just, like, it's up in the air right now as to when they have to receive an easement from the town with respect to accessing through the park.
Okay, so this is a regional.
It's a regional initiative.
Project,
Yes,
but
it
there's
is.
our component that's part of it.
That's correct.
Okay. Perhaps through the budget process, we can get additional information on that.
That's correct. Well, it's identified in the forecast, I believe.
But it was a 2012 budgeted item.
Okay. I know it's been deferred simply because they're spending their money down on the other end of Highway 20 at this time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Look forward to further updates on that. Anything else on any of the reports under consent? Going to call the question then as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Now, Councillor Pat, we're going to deal with that report. That is report 6.3. So it has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the following item be received for information. 6.3 report CIS 2312 Pelham, the Welland Pelham Chamber of Commerce request for municipal services review, possible impact on local businesses. Comments, questions? I think the issue that was raised, if I recall the letter from the Chamber of Commerce, was, and I think this is why Councillor Papp has left the room, was with a specific program that the town provides. And that's Zumba, and it says in the report its various iterations. It was perhaps, I think, perceived by the Chamber of Commerce that the town offering Zumba Fitness, Zumba Gold, Aqua Zumba, and Zumbatronic perhaps compete with private business. And although the report does indicate that the town hires private instructors to teach Zumba at municipal facilities, I guess the question is, how is it decided that these types of activities should occur, that they should be expanded? I don't remember any discussion in our budget process, and I know that it was initiated in January 2011 as part of the 2011 budget or the 2012 budget that it should be expanded. So I think that the Chamber was looking for information on how is it that these things are offered. That particular item seems to compete with a number of businesses that have picked that up in 2011, 2012 now. So I don't know if it's a question for the CAO or for Mr. Mantle. How is it that those types of items are offered by the town without council's involvement? Mr. CAO.
Mr. Mayor, the Recreation Department conducts regular need analysis and gets feedback from residents, and as part of their mandate to provide programming, they try and provide programming that doesn't already exist. In the specific case of Zumba classes, my understanding is that it was not in existence when the municipality decided to offer it, and it was identified by residents as a program that they would like and embrace, so we took the initiative and offered it. And as indicated in the report, it's not that, I mean, the town is facilitating the program, but the actual employment is going to private instructors or private residents who have that particular skill. Now that this issue has been taken, or now this activity has been taken up by private business, we will certainly be reevaluating whether or not to continue, but to simply drop it in midstream would not be practical or reasonable either for patrons. So it's a constant review process, and we'll be looking at it. You know, when these classes conclude, we'll be evaluating whether or not to continue, and we certainly will be taking into consideration that it is now offered in the private sector.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that answer and that review, and look forward to hearing a little bit about that in the future. Others to this issue? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This whole question speaks to a much broader issue, though. I mean, if we look at a newly developed playground program and boil it down to its essence, it's essentially daycare. So now does that mean we can't do a playground program because there's private daycare in the community? If there's a private swimming lessons that are held in a person's backyard, does that mean that the town can no longer offer swimming lessons? I just feel that the town, if the town perceives a need, then the town should address the need. If the town is called on by its citizens to have a program and the town staff looks at it, then they need to go ahead with it. And those people who can afford and choose to go to the private industry to meet their needs there, so be it. but at least we can offer an alternative to a private industry. I don't see that why is it that we cannot offer the same types of services that are offered in a private business? And, certainly perhaps the individual attention that they would get at a private industry would be different than the type of attention that they might get at a public facility. All of those sort of considerations. What if somebody comes in and decides that they want to have a private hockey league and rent the arena office? Does that mean that we don't allow Pelham minor hockey to go ahead and have their program going? That we underwrite to some degree? All of these sort of things. If our programs are developed in such a way and the fees are charged such that we're self-sufficient and the taxpayer in essence is not subsidizing having those programs, and I see no reason why we can't continue to have those programs, regardless of whether they're offered in the public sphere or not, or the private sphere or not.
Thank you very much
Comments?
for your comments. Others? Councillor Durley, Councillor Rubiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to that, especially if the town in fact has initiated the program and somebody sees it as an income-producing opportunity and they want to take over for it, that should not make the town default and get out of that. If in fact the town has the program established, they should be able to continue with it, and the other person has provided the competition, the town hasn't. And that's just my point further to what Councillor Kersey is saying.
Thank you. Councillor Rubiak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And indeed, to my comment, I think just expands on that theme. Fact of the matter is that the only use I can see of this report is that it gives people the opportunity to see where they can plug into our system and offer services that we might choose to outsource if the price is right. And this report then gives the public some general knowledge of the kinds of activities that they might be able to pursue. But what we choose as a town to provide, I think, out of consideration for the public good as we see it, I think that's got to be our freedom to do, and to do it as we see fit. And most often, I would hope that we would outsource it to private industry to do if that's the best way and if it's available.
Okay,
But
thank you.
I see nothing else with regard to this.
Any further discussion? I'm just going to comment, I do have a copy of the Chamber's letter, and they did indicate they wanted council and staff to review the services being offered by the town of Pelham and where there's a local provider of the same services, that they either not provide the service or partner with a local business to provide that service. So I think that's similar to what the CAO has indicated, that that is an ongoing process of evaluation, but also, as the report indicates, private instructors are used, so there is an opportunity to partner. So perhaps this report sheds light on it, as some councillors have indicated, that both processes occur.
Further
I was
comment?
going to try and close on that, but
Well,
anyways, go ahead,
I just
Councillor,
want to
and then Councillor
respond,
Clark.
comment on the letter. I mean, the request that we not provide the service. I think what I'm hearing around the table is that we're not going to respond favorably to that. We're saying if we're providing the service and it's successful and it's self-supporting, we will consider outsourcing it if they can provide it for the fees we feel appropriate to charge. But we're going to continue with the programs we see appropriate to provide. Is that not, have I misstated what I've heard?
I think we're in, what was the comment? We're all in
Consensus.
vehement agreement on that, but I think given that staff continue to evaluate it and as these programs evolve, so there's that other element to it. Councillor Clark?
Well, further to what Councillor Kersey is saying too, is like the letter is asking us to spell out, I guess, rather oddly, like where there are, what are the possible opportunities for business in the municipal environment, but are they following up on this afterwards? See if we are doing it, or like this report really makes no sense to me at all.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't know that the Chamber of Commerce has seen the report yet. Are we aware, Mr. CAO, whether they've
Not
seen
to
it or
my knowledge. This has gone to council for the first glance.
Okay, so, I mean, part of the recommendation could be that we send it to the Chamber of Commerce. If you want to make that amendment, I'd be open to that amendment. Councillor Clark?
Well, I'm thinking, Councillor Kersey's probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking. If we send it to the chamber, then we should be sending it to the Pelham Business Association as well.
Okay.
I
Councillor
don't,
Kersey?
I don't see any need to send the report anywhere. I think what we need to do is respond to the letter that was given to us, and that was that we look at our services, which we have done. We've discussed it. We've made a decision, or at least given some indication that we've made a decision of what we're going to do. And we need to send a letter back of some sort of response to the chamber and say, following a review of the services offered, this is our position, period. We don't have to.
Thank you. Quite frankly, though, the recommendation is to simply receive it, and that's why this is under consent. So we're not, unless council wants to make a specific amendment to this, we're simply receiving it. If you want to send it to the chamber, you can, but there will be no direction. If there was a letter that would go as a result of this recommendation, it would be from the clerk saying, on today, council or committee received this report, here it is, and they wanted to forward it, here it is. There's no comment about services, there's no comment about anything. If committee wants to make that comment, we can have that debate, but right now, the motion before us is to simply receive it. Okay? Councillor Rivyak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for clarification. In receiving it, does this become a public document? It's available on our website? So somebody wanting to know?
Madam Clerk?
It's not available on the website yet, but it is a public document. Once we do have e-agendas, all of the reports will be on the website.
Perfect. Then I don't see, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I don't see any purpose to doing anything further than that.
Okay, thank you. And it was a public report as of 8:30 on last Friday. So I'm going to call the question on the motion to receive. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you. The next item is business subdivisions. First, we have corporate services as amended. I'm going to clean up my spot here for Councillor Durley. And let you take the chair, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to Corporate Services. First matter before us, moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak, that report FD 1-12, Annual Compliance Report 2001, Pelham Fire Department be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. The General Committee, Corporate Services Division, recommend that Council endorse the Annual Compliance Report 2011 as prepared by the Fire Department for submission to the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office. Questions or comments? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Certainly appreciate the report coming forward to council. I don't know whether the chief will be able to answer this, but on page 9, I guess, it talks about the programs or activities of the exceeding minimum requirements. It talks about the number of properties inspected and some other statistics here, Marion, Hams, etc. How does this compare with previous years or current year?
Chief?
Mr. Chairman, it is very comparable to other years, very similar program. It seems to comply with everything they're asking.
Okay, thank you very much.
I commend you, Chief, and the department for such a comprehensive report and keeping up with that, because the Fire Marshal, I believe there's some big changes coming down from their office, and there may be other things that we need to do, but certainly keeping up with the requirements as they are keeps us in good stead with them and just shows how good a department we have, and congratulate the staff for us, will you please? Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that carries. I hope to put that over there. Moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, that report TR 48-12, Town of Pelham permissive grant review be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That for reasons outlined in report TR 4812, General Committee Corporate Services Division recommend to Council that option 3, maintain current policy and current administrative process, be approved. And please note that Councillor King has left the room. Questions or comments about the motion before us? Councillor Papp?
Thank you. Well, I'll start. Both Councillor Kersey and myself, and I'll let him speak, put this on the floor, and I have to tell you, I will not support this. I really do believe that we could create a hybrid situation between option 2 and option 3. I understand staff's concern about timing and all the rest, but having been involved in other grant application processes, I think that timing can be expedited quite easily, and also would allow us to be able to formally go through the grant applications and recommendations with on a much more, I guess you could say, comprehensive and let's say frontline basis. So I realize that the intent, but I think that the other thing that comes out of this is that, as we discussed about a week ago, that as we move through permissive grants, we also need to tie them to the priorities of the town, and I think those need to be articulated fairly well. My suggestion is, if there's some way that we can do this in a hybrid, like I said, a committee basis, I would be in favor of that. And quite honestly, there are some models that are used, particularly by the Niagara Community Foundation, that expedite this process quite well, and I would like to see us go down that route.
Are you proposing an amendment, Councillor Papp?
I would like to, but I'll wait till Councillor Kersey speaks,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Kersey.
Well, it may seem quirky that both the mover and the seconder both don't support the current report. We did want to get it on the table. I endorse what Councillor Papp has put forth. I would like to see greater council involvement in making the decisions, more information brought forward, and I think it'd be a more open process and give greater comfort in arriving at a budget and the awards for myself, and I think it'd be better for the council in general. And I think I would also like to endorse his comment with respect to tying things to the priorities that are established by council as we move forward.
Would you like to propose an amendment, or would you rather defer it back to staff with the direction to reconsider?
No, we can do that.
I think both, I would rather have the staff look at it and come back with, I think they have some background information, and again, this is done with no disrespect to you, it's just, I think there's a model that could come up with that works, and if you can come back in a month or so, let us know how that works, Mr. Chair, if that's suitable.
Mr. CEO, is that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, would be
that's good?
more than pleased to do that.
That's great, okay.
Perfect.
Questions or comments, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I certainly appreciate what's being recommended here, and I think under option 4 it talks about a committee, which I'm hearing from Councilor Kersey to be council. But I guess I do have a question, and that is the idea that it's linked to our strategic plan. It's not specifically stated strategic plan, but it does say on the top of page 3, the service to be complemented with council's policies, positions, and priorities, which I would read as strategic plan. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can we get some clarity from staff? Is in the past, when they've looked at that, have they reviewed it as the council's strategic plan? Is that what they assume are those policies, positions, and priorities?
I'm just going to deal with this question, and perhaps through through you, since the treasurer has been more involved in this than in the past, I'll refer to the treasurer perhaps to make some comments about the question that was asked there.
Thank you.
Regarding the community benefit, it is definitely aligned with the strategic plan on what it provides to the community, and taken into consideration that the current strategic plan was just adopted late this year. The budgetary responsibility for the treasurer is to go through and look at the eligibility to make sure that they conform. And, based on the policy that's written and that's in place and the mandate of the applications that we receive, it's very simple to know if they're charitable organizations and if they're a geographical benefit to Pelhamites, as you might say. So some of them are very easy to check off on whether they meet the eligibility requirements. And solely based on this, that's, you're either eligible or you're not eligible. So that process is just policy driven. And then you look at the eligible ones and you go through looking at what the community benefit is, duplication of services being provided. We had some issues with that over the last one. And that's how the recommendations are brought forward. So I might add that, but aligning that with the strategic direction that we know and understand here with staff SMT and dealing with the CAO on making those recommendations. However, in saying that, the current, what's being suggested by council right now is option number 2, basically, because there's no hybrid between option 2 and 3, because 3 and 2 say the same thing, except that a committee be established, which would include council in the determination process of how much grant to give to each organization, because I think it's very clear for staff on what's eligible. So if council wants to decide that there's other types of eligibility, then the policy really needs to be relooked at and revisited, because it's very clear defined in this policy on what companies or what organizations come forward that are eligible. I don't think we need a committee established to determine that, because that's kind of like the administrative process. I mean, it can be shown to council, these are why they weren't eligible, but it might eliminate a step in the process, and then when we have the eligible ones set aside, we review those as a committee and determine what the amounts will be for budget. So I think the recommendation could just be to change to option number 2.
Thank you.
Is there perhaps, is there a question as to the policy as it's written? Is there some concern that that isn't right, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When this, I'm trying to remember as these reports come to us, as I see assessment criteria number 4, the community benefit, so there's a scoring there. I can't remember, and Councilor Papson shaking his head, I don't think we get that scoring. It's sort of here's the recommendation. I think, Mr. Chair, that's probably why council is interested in being a little bit more involved in the process, because although the treasurer, with respect has indicated you're either eligible or you're not, once you get into that eligibility piece and you say, yes, these 5 of 6 are eligible, there's a bit of a scoring process that can occur there, and I think maybe that's why some members of council are saying that there should be some sort of committee. But I don't think that we receive the scoring. So I'm just looking for clarity on that from the treasurer, Mr. Chair, as to whether we've received the scoring as part of the reports that come to us.
I don't recall seeing that, Madam Treasurer.
No, there's no scoring that's included in those reports. Everything is maintained in the treasurer's office with respect to the evaluation, and then it's discussed with the CEO before presentation to council.
Well, I think, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that answer, and that's probably another layer or an answer that can be given. Perhaps the scoring can be given, and then council on its determination of the budget. So maybe that's the hybrid that Councilor Pop was.
Yeah.
Okay. When we refer things to committee or staff, the motion should include the reasons, who it's referred to, first of all, and of course we do this to the CAO, and the reporting date to come back, and also any instructions. So in fact, the instructions, if in fact the scoring and all of this stuff is to be there, if we can include that in the deferral or referral.
Yes.
Okay, so is that, I'm giving the clerk writer's cramp here by talking so fast, but, okay, so what we're looking for, any instructions, so the instructions should be, I'll ask you guys to come forward with what you feel is there, and then we can debate it.
Well, I think, I'm not trying to make this tedious. The thing is, that the mechanism needs to be in place that shows how the determination was made for eligibility. Secondly, I think there's some areas, and I do agree, Mr. Seal and the Treasurer, there's need to define clearly what is unmet demand, because we don't want it to be considered to be subjective, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on, once we get through the priorities, then we'll be able to say that we will give all grants for these specific areas. That'll take time to develop. but there are protocols that we could put together fairly quickly that would allow us, and as, it could be a small group of counselors, but those instructions on how the committee would work, and with very clear-cut, how could I say, timelines. A question is like, how do we advertise? How do people know that we have these grants, and all that stuff? I don't want to get into all the technical stuff, but that's basically what it means. The protocol is set up, the staff come back with option 2, whatever that may be, how that constitutes itself, with considering the timelines for budget, all that stuff as well. And that I think we can come up with something that'll work and give us an idea of how these were determined. Because I know, and I'm looking at Mr. Mayor myself, we've been asked, people have asked us, how did you? And I've made this known without any prejudice to anybody, just saying, how did you come up with these, organizations, and how did you make the determination? So this just kind of clear, and it's a process, how can I say, Mr. Chair, sorry, it'll take time to get through this, but there is enough information. Like I say, we have had some experience with Niagara Community Foundation, and it works very effectively. It's very timely, very quick, but it's thorough. And there's no questions asked when people are awarded the grants. People know exactly who is eligible, who qualifies, who isn't, and then when the recommendations are made, they're very clear to everyone there. So that's basically what I'm asking. And if it can be brought back, I don't know if August 13th is good enough, and I don't know, because I know we're planning out our budget schedule. Mr. Chair, I believe you'll be working on that, right, over whenever these grants, normally you come when, in November, in December to us? For you,
The deadline for applications,
December 1st.
December 1st.
for applications. Okay, so we got time. And I shouldn't say this, but I'll leave it to staff. I'm prepared to volunteer to help, and I know that's the only reason we wanted to make sure that it would work. We don't want to get caught. We have been, and Mr. Mayor and I know, we've been caught in situations where people have asked us, how did you make it, and how fair, and all the rest. So I want to eliminate it, put us in a situation where it immunizes us from that type of stuff. That's it.
Okay, so a motion to refer back to committee.
Yep.
And staff, back to the CAO,
Yep.
by August the 13th, is that reasonable, or
I think September is fine if it's enough time.
give the first September meeting, would that work?
Yeah, I'd like to bring it back in August, and then maybe expedite the application deadline, because December 1st is a very tight deadline before operating budget, as you know, because of Christmas holidays and the possibility of only one council meeting,
Perfect.
and trying to tie everybody in for a committee.
Yeah, that works
So-
perfectly.
August, okay.
That way we'll put the the press release out on the application process
Right.
and get it out
Right,
sooner.
that's all.
Okay.
And the instructions, Madam Clerk, were you able to discern the gist of what we're looking for in this? It's all scribbled? Okay, and so a motion to defer, and all of that is there. The motion will come forward. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your involvement.
Yeah. And all of what was spoken has been encapsulated in the minutes.
Thank you.
And that will be there, okay?
Thank you very
Other
much.
questions or comments? Councilor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so I clearly understand the direction, are we directing staff to review the entire policy and institute the changes that we've talked, such as the scoring system and the administration of it and all of that? It sounds to me like it's beyond more than just bringing this report back, but that it's a review of the entire policy.
It seems that it hints at that, and everything that was encapsulated. However, the gist of the policy still is there. It's just a matter of basically the reporting of how the decision was made is what your concerns are, is that's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Well, in effect, then, we do need to review the entire policy then, because if I understood correctly, there is no scoring system currently being used within the policy?
There is a scoring system, it's not brought to council in the report.
Okay.
Right. So what the report, the direction that I understand is to lay out how the committee will work, what the steps are in the process for the committee, how the scoring will be managed within the committee.
That's all we need. Perfect.
So that's my intent on what I'll bring back to
Nancy
council.
has that all, just as you said, only in her words.
Right,
and
so I'm not going to
those
be
are
looking at the
points.
policy itself, but just the steps in the process for the committee.
Perfect.
Okay, so we'll call for a motion on the referral. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Therefore, this motion
Sorry.
The other and new business, I will ask the fire chief, there was an announcement today that there is a decision that has been made about open fires, and chief, I will ask you if you could to make public what the announcement was today, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Because of the smog alert and the extreme dryness, we're asking the citizens to refrain from any form of open burning, particularly the farm committee. We have been out to one bush fire already because of a unattended brush pile, so that we never put through a lot of work in very hot conditions. So we're asking that everybody refrain.
Thank you very much, chief. The hot weather that we've had, the dry weather that we've had causes a real concern because there is danger for fire spreading. So we ask the community to cooperate and have no open burn fires until further notice. Right? Thank you very much. That concludes corporate services, and I pass the chair on to Councilor Clark and CIS.
Thank you, Councillor Durley. Welcome to Community and Infrastructure Services. Brought forward by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor King. That report CIS 20/12 Quaker Road at Clare Avenue and Line Avenue intersection. Response to request for all-way stop control be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That General Committee, Community Infrastructure Service Division, recommend to Council that all-way stop controls not be placed at the intersection of Quaker Road and Clare Avenue and Line Avenue. Comments or questions? Councilor Ribbiak?
Thank you. The report is extremely illustrative. It's very informative. And it points out that the accidents that occur at that intersection are all as a result of northbound drivers. I haven't had an accident there, so I can't speak from any personal experience, but I just wonder whether what's happening at the corner is that northbound drivers think that east-west traffic have stop signs, as most intersections in the area seem to be controlled by all-way stop signs, and failing to check, they just keep proceeding. And I'm wondering, therefore, whether some sort of indication might be provided that, in fact, it is not an all-way stop. I know that that if one anticipates that all traffic is going to come to a stop and everyone is going to take their turn, you just proceed whether or not you see traffic coming. And I think it's worth looking at, just because all of those accidents seem to be pretty much alike.
Okay. You want to address that to Mr. Mantle as a question, or?
Yes. My apologies.
I don't know of any warning signs that identify stop locations as being not an all-way stop. Usually it's an all-way stop or it's nothing. So you would have, that's why we've recommended the oversized sign at this location.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Ribbiak?
Right. It doesn't sound to me, though, that the problem is that the traffic isn't stopping. It's that they stop and then they go. So I guess an enlarged sign is going to mean that they are going to stop and then go. I don't see how that changes anything. It does seem to me, and it's only an observation, I guess, that most of the corners that don't have lights around here are controlled by all-way stops. And yes, they are marked as all-way stops, but those that are not don't have a marking. And those are now, I think, the exception rather than the rule. And I guess that kind of complacency sets in where you come to a stop, and rather than checking, just assuming that traffic the other way is going to stop and then moving on. So I'm just wondering whether in simply making it a bigger stop sign, we are actually not addressing the issue at all. It's a comment, it's not a question.
Yeah, okay. And I think Councillor Durley, you had your hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at the report, 9 collisions are significant. There's a suggestion that a change in 2009 may have contributed to the numbers, but still there's 3 more in 2011 and there's already 1 in 2012. I look at this and I look at all of the intersections in and around there. If you go from Rice Road and Woodlawn, there is a stop, 4-way stop. If you go to Port Robinson Road and Rice Road, go to Port Robinson Road and Cataract Road, they're all 4-way stops. Now, some of them aren't in the town of Pelham, but they're all 4-way stops. And I think adding to what Councilor Ribbiak is saying, that people are expecting perhaps to do that, because I know one of those intersections wasn't a 4-way stop, and there was a severe collision where a friend of mine was killed in an accident because they got T-boned when somebody didn't stop, and it became a 4-way stop. I'm just concerned that, although the warrants as far as traffic is concerned, apparently don't make what the province says they do. However, I'm sure that at Cataract and Port Robinson, those aren't there either, and that is a 4-way stop. So, I'm just concerned that everybody expects it to be a 4-way stop, so stop and go, and that could very well be a contributing factor. Purely speculation, but some of the comments in this report are purely speculation as well. So, in fact, I would still recommend that we do put a 4-way stop there, and that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given what we learned, or some of us learned at the AMO conference last year, and the discussions we've had around the table about joint and severable liability, and some of the cases that were discussed there where it seems that municipalities are held to a much higher standard in terms of liability, and in fact, we need to do things that are above and beyond even what is reasonable to appear that we are responsible, even to the point of being liable when a drunk driver goes 50 kilometers an hour over the speed limit around a hairpin turn, and municipalities are found guilty of being liable to some degree. So I think we're faced with a similar circumstance here, where we have precedents around the town where 4-way stops, much of those that were alluded to by Councillor Durley, that establish a sort of a norm within the municipality. Despite the fact of the report and the comprehensiveness of the report, I would support putting a 4-way stop there simply to insulate us to a greater extent with respect to liability.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Papp?
Just to echo the voices of my councillors and colleagues. I go by there every day, several times during the day, and it's true. Ever since the reconstruction of Line Avenue, there's hesitancy, and I respect the specifications of the warrants, but the truth is, there's near misses every day. There's people taking chances. I don't want to get it, and they either stop at the stop sign or they edge through, and it just is a constant factor. So I would be in support of installing a 4-way stop there. Personally, I would like to see a light, but I mean, who knows, whenever Quaker Road gets reconstructed, but I mean, the traffic and the volume and and the drivers, like I said, it's a real, I almost want to say dangerous spot once there's activity going on. So I would support that.
Mr. Mayor, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A question. The traffic volumes we certainly have them for Quaker Road in 2012. How did we get those numbers?
Mr. Mao?
Those numbers are part of our annual traffic counts. We do traffic counts over the years, and I think the most recent ones we had for Line Avenue and Clare Avenue were 2006. We did have something more current, I think, for Quaker.
2012. So I just wonder if the volume has increased over the last couple of years, especially with the reconstruction. The reconstruction was probably 2009. Mr. Mantle, you can't let us know if it's increased or not, I guess,
No,
because you don't have the counts.
I
is
don't
that
have the
correct?
information
You don't have the
available. We can add those, we can include those counts as part of our fall traffic counts.
Okay. That might be helpful. I'm not convinced that a always stop is necessary in this area, given the information that we have at this time with traffic volumes. It is somewhat aged information, and I think it would be important to have that information, and even to compare. Do we know what the traffic volumes were in 2006 on Quaker Road? Has that increased dramatically in the intervening years? To Mr. Mantle, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
It actually decreased. I think it was, I forget what the number we have in there. I think it was almost 8,000 cars a day on Quaker at that time.
So it's decreased. Okay. Interesting. I think for an interim, I'd be comfortable with an interim solution, which would be to follow the staff recommendation, putting the oversized stop ahead signs and the stop signs. But then also let's revisit the issue as soon as we have the traffic volume counts for that area, to see if it does then warrant it. With the information we have, I don't think it warrants it. There was something going on in 2011. There were 3 accidents, none in 2010. There were a number in 2009, one this year. So I know accidents aren't the only consideration, but I'm supportive of the recommendation. If we were to add the last piece here on page 3 about adding a stop ahead sign and oversized stop signs for Clare and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Durley?
I'm quite familiar with this area, obviously. Since 2006, there has been a greater development. Tanner has been extended, and we have Cooper's Court, and we have a couple other, Wilson Crossing. There's a lot more inhabitants that are there. There's going to be even more traffic coming out when the Lugetta development, it gets occupied. Ask anybody on that street, the Line Avenue traffic has severely increased, believe me. Clare Avenue also, I drive, as Councillor Papp says, I drive this many times a week and many times a day usually. It may not meet the warrant that the province looks for, but it certainly is busy, and the configuration of Line Avenue as it narrows coming to Quaker Road causes some congestion and some problems, especially when delivery trucks are coming into the businesses involved there. So I just think that a 4-way stop would make a lot of people more aware of what's going on and make it more careful, and would ease the pressures of driving in that area, and I think reduce the risk of collision and injury. So that's a comment and an observation, because definitely from 2006 to now there has been a drastic change of there. And there's one neighbor who did a count of cars, and it certainly is higher than this. And also, since 2006, that road has been resurfaced. Speeds are a little quicker now than they were when it was a pothole-filled road. So,
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Durley. Councillor Ribbiak, did you have your hand up?
I didn't, but I do have a question, if I may. I guess to move toward a 4-way stop would require a motion.
Correct.
I'm going to make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I just happen to have one here.
You have to vote against this.
Nancy, you need to defeat this, it's active.
So the motion would be that General Committee and Community and Infrastructure Services Division recommend to Council that all-way stop controls be placed at the intersection of Quaker Road and Clare Avenue and Line Avenue. So
Yeah, but
the
this,
motion would be to amend to remove the word not.
you'd have to amend though, right? Because it's already been moved and seconded.
Yes, so the motion would be to amend by removing the word not.
Okay.
Yes.
Point of order. Mr. Chair, wouldn't that be, the motion is directly contrary to the motion on the floor, or the amendment is directly contrary to the motion on the floor? Would it not be proper to defeat this motion and then put a new motion on?
Once a motion is defeated, the matter is finished.
Okay. Different rules at the region. Okay, thank you.
According to meeting procedures, once a motion is decided, the matter is finished. So the proper motion would be to amend this motion.
Thank you.
So I need someone to
Second the amendment.
second the amendment. Sorry, a question?
I just have a question about form. Clearly, this report does not support placing a four-way stop, and yet, if we amend the motion as recommended, Madam Clerk, it reads that Community Infrastructure Services, in fact, does recommend that we put a four-way stop. So
No,
I think
it's-
we would need a separate motion that council is recommending, or general committee is recommending.
That the general committee division.
Can I- The way these motions are formulated, when it comes to council in the August meeting, the recommendation would be that council recommend that always stop controls be placed at, whenever the resolution at, or the recommendation at general committee moves forward to council, generally in 2 weeks, it then becomes a motion to council.
Oh, I see, okay.
It's committee's recommendation to council.
Infrastructure Services Division. The general
thank you.
committee recommended.
Thank you.
Read this
We
now?
still need a seconder.
I need a seconder to change this motion. Councillor Papp?
Yeah, thank you for that.
So now you're just going to vote on the amendment to remove the word not.
Okay.
And so that would,
I need a vote
on the amendment.
on the amendment, and we're just going to change one word here. So that the new one will read that General Committee, Community and Infrastructure Services Division recommend to council that always stop controls be placed at the intersection of Quaker Road, Clare Avenue, and Line Avenue.
But the question on the floor is to amend the motion to remove the word not.
Right. Okay, and to amend the motion to remove the word not from the
Right.
recommendation.
And then you will vote on the
Okay.
motion
Okay, then we'll read it
as
out again.
amended.
Okay, so right now, we're just going on the motion to amend by removing the word not from the recommendation.
Right.
Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
So the amendment's carried, now you vote on the motion as amended,
Okay, now we're gonna vote on the motion as amended, so read it out now with the word not.
without the word not.
Okay, so what we're doing now, just to make sure I get this right, see, we're lost without her. The General Committee, Community and Infrastructure Services Division recommend to council that always stop controls be placed at the intersection of Quaker Road, Clare Avenue, and Line Avenue. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Get up.
One more. Okay, we have a motion from Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Rivak, that reports CIS 21/12 pedestrian crosswalk requests, Pelham Street, north of Churchill be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That the committee recommend to council that a signalized pedestrian crosswalk for Pelham Street north of Churchill be included in the 2013 budget. Comments or questions?
Chair, I know this was brought forward by the Active Transportation Committee, but there's some information in the report that I'm not sure about. And that is, it was saying, I believe it was in here, that was the intention all along, that it be signalized. That's not my recollection of the work of the Beautification Committee. I don't remember ever seeing that in any of the plans. It said here would eventually be erected to designate the area. I don't remember that at all. Can we just have some clarity on that?
Provide that. Mr. Mao?
Councilor Kersey could.
Don't know where to fish for that one.
My recollection is that there were discussions at the design stage with respect to that, and some of the discussions revolved around complete signalization of the intersection. Then that was a secondary item, was simply, no, we didn't want to go that route. It was to put a signalized crosswalk in there. And I imagine it would look similar to the one we have up on Hay Street at AK Week School. And then at some point, it must have been eliminated from the project. And so I really can't comment on that because I wasn't part of that process.
It was moved somewhere.
Councillor Kersey?
I clearly recommend the discussions with the engineer and our director at the time. In fact, the original recommendation was to put the crosswalk almost in front of, at the end of the entrance to Town Square Boulevard. And both the Beautification Committee and the PAC Committee fought vigorously to finally convince the engineers to move it down to the base of Churchill. Unfortunately, I do not recall any discussion around signalization. There was some, maybe sort of a very light discussion around it. There was always a concern expressed by the engineering firm that any type of signalization there would result in a backing the traffic up towards Highway 20. Because of the close proximity between the signal at Highway 20 and Pelham Street and Churchill, any prolonged signalization at the base of Churchill could result in a backup of traffic back towards Highway 20 and create congestion there. So there was always concern about any type of signalization there. You know, if we were going to do some signalization there, we would should also look at the left-hand turn out of Pelham Town Square, because that would in fact reduce the amount of congestion on that street, which would assist in towards that signalization. So I think that should be part of the equation if we're going to consider signalization there. That's another factor, but I don't know whether that added any clarity there, but.
Okay. Question, Mr. Mantle, your comments on that?
At one time, there were signals were identified for the intersection of Pelham Town Square and Pelham Street. When Pelham Street was a regional road, those signals were identified at that time. They were deleted from the plans and placed down at the corner of Station Street and Highway 20 as a sort of a stopgap to deal with that location. So that was the same concern at that time, was that traffic would be backed up from Highway 20 right across the Pelham Town Square entrance. So, but they were identified and it was budgeted for at that time. Then the road became a local road and the project was never moved forward from there.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that clarity. Regarding this particular signalization, there's also been, as Councillor Kersey alluded to, and Mr. Mantle, calls that perhaps that intersection at Churchill and Pelham be completely signalized. So if this were done, if this crosswalk were signalized in this way, and then in the future the entire intersection had a traffic signal, could it be used in the same way? Can it be planned that in the future that could occur, so that it wouldn't have to be removed? It would be money well spent as opposed to money thrown away.
Mr. Mantle?
It just depends on the placement of the poles and that sort of thing. Like the traffic, when they do their design for the poles, for the lights themselves, they may have to relocate them, but the conductors can all stay and the controllers can stay in the same place. So there's maybe some need for relocation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor King?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question and a comment. I know that the Active Transportation Committee is looking for identification of a crosswalk at Churchill and Pelham Street and Churchill, where there is already a sort of quasi crosswalk. The pavement is a different color, but because of cars driving over it, it's now almost as black as the rest of the asphalt. In their request, they are asking that that crosswalk be identified and signed. They're not looking for signalization of traffic lights that's going to back up any traffic or anything of that nature. Their understanding over several meetings, excuse me, with Mr. Walsh was that there was going to be a proper pedestrian crosswalk at that intersection, which never transpired other than this lighter colored pavement there, if you will. So I think that the recommendation for a signalized pedestrian crosswalk does actually create some of the situations that Councillor Kersey has already addressed. And I think it is more of an expense than is actually necessary there. I mean, it's just really something to identify to drivers or motorists that there are pedestrians crossing here. There is quite a blind spot there because of the church and the parking to the corner.
I can definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mallow, do you know anything about that?
Not aware of it, I'm sorry. I wasn't part of those early discussions.
Councillor Kersey? Or, sorry, I'm looking. Yeah, other way. Councillor Ribbiat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for information, if we were to demarcate that as a crossing without signalization, what would that demarcation look like? What would be the signage? Is it overhead? Is it just poles?
Mr. Mallow?
I'd have to research that to see. I'd be a little bit concerned about something that wasn't identified properly, just simply because of the volume of traffic. It's over 11,000 cars a day at that intersection.
But I'm just wondering whether it's more than just lines on the road, whether it's one of those
Yellow signs.
arches that say crosswalk or whatever to clearly indicate that pedestrians at that point will have the right of way. I don't know. I'm looking for something adequate given the volume of traffic. Clearly, the report indicates that there is the volume of traffic to warrant a signal. If we come short of a signal, it ought to be something that's effective in providing that kind of safety for pedestrians at that point.
Okay. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can concur that, in fact, the discussions were that there would be a proper crosswalk there. I guess my understanding was that what was put there was a proper crosswalk. Perhaps it's not. What in fact maybe we should do is turn it back to the Pelham Active Transportation Committee to say, what is it exactly that they want? Like, what do they feel is a proper crosswalk? I mean, is it signalization? It sounds like it's not signalization. It's just sort of a clarification of that crossing area.
Mr.
Councillor
Chair,
King?
may I respond? They are requesting a signalized crosswalk. I'm not certain that the signalization needs to be traffic lights, stoplights, or whether it is clearly that kind of pedestrian crossing lit up over the road. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's signalized, but I don't think to the extent of traffic lights.
Okay. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that there's a couple of options for council to consider here. One may be the simple installation of a solar crosswalk signal, which can then be moved if in fact the crosswalk turns into an intersection and it is signalized with traffic lights. The other option would be to simply sign it with the white sign with the black outline of a person walking. This is pedestrian crossing, and that would be a little less effective, but it still would be, I believe, compliant with traffic sign requirements for crosswalks. So those would be two things to consider. If council wanted to consider the full-blown installation of hardwired lights that you press the button and the light comes on, I mean, that would be considerable expense, and it could create a wasted resource. If in fact lights are put in, you'd have to have additional expense, and then that infrastructure would no longer be able to be used. So it may be something to consider. If you want to go with the lights, then go with a simple solar process and budget it in 2013.
Councillor Kersey?
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, what we need to do is refer this back to staff for a further follow-up report on the alternatives that have been proposed by Mr. CAO.
Mr. Mayor?
I'll second that.
Okay, well, before you, that, just one quick comment for me is that, I mean, the overhead sign, we just took all the wires down.
Yeah, that's
So
the
let's
thing.
not jump too quick on firing them right back up. Okay, so, sorry, you are.
I'm
you
going to
put-
second that
Did you get that?
motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a seconder
To refer it back to staff?
to refer it back to staff. Okay, so what do we do with this?
Well, right now you have a motion on the floor to refer it back to staff, so you just need to take a vote on that motion, and if that passes, this one is
Is
deferred.
that- Okay, so then I just
Call the question on the.
call the question on the amendment, which is to refer it back to staff. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Or deferred, yes. Okay.
Some water, we just got choked up by that last referral.
Okay, from Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that report CIS 22/12 Sawmill Road at Center Street intersection, always stop request investigation be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That the committee recommend to council that the speed limit on Sawmill Road between 500 meters west of Center Street and 500 meters east of Center Street be established at 60 kilometers per hour. Comments or questions? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think it would be, it was a bit of a surprise to me and maybe to others around the council and through the community that, as it says here, if it's unsigned, it's 50. And I always thought that that certainly applied in built-up areas, but not in rural areas. I thought it was 70. So, but it appears that most people think it's 80.
Or 90.
So I guess this is linked to the rural roads study, which I presume will be coming back shortly. So I was just surprised at that, Mr. Chair, and I am supportive of this. It certainly 50, if we went with 50, nobody would ever comply, and it would be an enforcement issue. So I am supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you. This is in response, I guess, to a question that was put on the table, I think, late last year. And I think that the question was put on the table as a result of concerns about that intersection, and in fact, the request was for stop signs, to make that an all-way stop controlled intersection. And people in the area had indicated a couple of concerns. One of those was, of course, great speed of people going to and coming from west on Sawmill, where there's a golf course, and I was a golfer. I know that I always hated to be late for a tee-off time. But whatever the reason, the speeds are quite high, and the study that comes in this report indicates, in fact, that the speeds are quite high. The 85th percentile, traveling westbound is 79, I'm sorry, eastbound is 83 and 81 going west. So quite high, given that's the 85th percentile. It means that there's a whole other 15 percentile that go a lot faster. The other concern that was expressed by people in the area is that the slow traffic is indeed very, very slow, because it's usually tractors and farm equipment. And so you have high-speed cars traveling in an intersection that is used particularly well by farmers in the area who drive very slowly and drive rigs that take up a good deal of the road. A concern that they mentioned as well was concern for the driveway that is clearly marked in the photograph accompanying the report, which is along the slope of the hill. And although there is a hidden driveway sign there, there is a great deal of concern in the area that traffic coming eastbound along Sawmill is going to encounter traffic coming out of that driveway. So the request was for stop signs. The response is, in effect, as Mr. Mayor has pointed out, to increase the speed from 50 to 60 as you approach that intersection. And frankly, I'm just concerned that would be a pretty inadequate response to the situations that exist there. The real concern is that people are going to be going at speed over the brow of the hill, not see exactly what's ahead of them, and what's ahead of them may be extremely slow agricultural traffic or somebody coming into the driveway, and the concern is that somebody's going to be very seriously injured in that area. So I'm surprised that that the report has indicated, as I said, a speed limit concern marker rather than stop signs. Point out that if the speed limit is 50 and raising it to 60 isn't going to do much, people are ignoring the speed limit now and they're traveling at great speed. I'm not sure that having a sign there that says 60 is going to do anything to affect the speed of traffic in that area. My comments.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Mantle, do you have anything to add to this?
We based the recommendation simply on the warrants weren't met. We don't look at beyond that. Just simply, how can we resolve the issue without, in some manner, recognizing that there was an issue with speeding traffic there and regulatory with respect to the speed limit signs. We felt that was the best avenue to follow.
Councilor Rubio?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And really, it's an excellent report. It's well researched, and I have no difficulty with understanding that the facts as they are, and that the science indicates perhaps that a four-way stop sign isn't warranted. But I think that in part our role here is to make those decisions that may at times be an exception to what is warranted and to go beyond what is warranted. We just did a couple of motions ago, and that it might be worth thinking that this is one of those situations where going beyond what is warranted might make sense. I know it would bring a great deal of comfort to the people in the area who have that concern and who have raised it and raised it and raised it. So I don't know whether I'll receive a seconder for it or not, but I want to propose that we, in response to this report, go with an always stop sign, always stop control at that intersection.
Do you have a seconder?
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Councilor Durley, thank you. Okay, discussion? For a four-way stop at that intersection? Councilor Durley?
Sometimes all of science really does not trump common sense, and I'm just wondering what the common sense thing here is. Increasing the speed by 10 kilometers per hour, where people are already traveling faster than that, to me, isn't common sense. There is, although it's warranted, and I'm not saying that the author of this report is not warranted in that. I'm saying perhaps the warrant is there, but does it make common sense? I'm looking for a common sense solution in here, and in fact, there is dangerous situation, and I think the stop sign there would make people more aware and make people more safe, just as it was in the other debate that we did have. So I think I could support that, just on the basis of a common sense approach to it rather than a scientific and meeting warrants approach. That, to me, you know, reading what the warrants are doesn't truly convince me that you know, what the warrant says is going to solve the problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps we need to further amend that amendment and by adding that we want signage along that strip. If it's an unsigned area, the speed is 50. They're doing 80, so maybe we need to sign it at 50 if that's what we expect people to travel at, so that there is nothing left to chance. And also to do the four-way stop. I think that way we cover ourselves completely.
So you're wanting to amend the amendment to include signage at 50 kilometers as well as four-way stop sign?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, now what do we do?
We need a seconder.
I need a seconder for that. Councillor Ribbiak?
Vote on that first, but you called for any comments on that amendment.
Okay. Any comments on both the signs and the stop signs, speed
Right
signs
now
and
you're-
stop
Right now
signs?
you're gonna comment on the 50, on the amendment of 50.
Adding the amendment of the 50. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did allude earlier to the rural roads study, and I presume that some of this will be included in there. Maybe can we have an indication from staff both about the timing of that study and the breadth of that study, what that study is doing in terms of speeds? And is this road, for instance, covered in that study?
Okay, Mr. Mantle?
We expect to have that report complete by the end of the summer, and it will identify Sawmill Road is included in the study process.
Okay. The other question I have, Mr. Chair, is an adjacent community, I believe it's Lincoln, has something called rural access road signs, and they're signed at, the rural roads are signed at 60. Can we have some clarity from staff about what that means?
Mr. Mantle?
Unfamiliar with that terminology.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Comments? Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you. I think that we have generally across Pelham a great deal of concern about speed. And it's not just on Sawmill. I know that where I live on Foss, people have been complaining about that, and we've heard that kind of over and over. In fact, one of the comments we've received with respect to haste is those speed bumps made a hell of a difference. I'm not going to propose that we put speed bumps on Sawmill. I just point out that the speed of traffic within Pelham is a matter of concern for a whole lot of people in a whole lot of places. And one of the problems may be, and it certainly is in North Pelham, that there aren't a great number of indicators of what the speed is. And that people do make the assumption that, gee, it must be 80 because the road can handle it, or they think it can. And so they speed everywhere. 50 is what it is in this town. I'm not sure that 50 is as good as 60 in those areas, but it is what it is. And I think that wherever the opportunity makes itself apparent, we ought to put up that kind of signage. So I'm certainly supportive of the motion to indicate along Sawmill that there is a speed limit.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we're gonna,
So you have a motion by Councilors Kersey and Ribbiak to amend the amendments, the secondary amendment, to add signage along the road that the posted speed limit is 50 kilometers.
okay, so we're calling the question, correct?
On the 50,
On,
just a matter of 50.
did we already do the stop sign? or we
No,
just
you
did-
do the stop sign next.
Okay. We're calling the question on amending the speed from 60 kilometers to 50 kilometers on Center Street.
It's actually just to post the
Oh,
speed
to
limit.
post the speed limit, okay, of 50 kilometers an hour
Sawmill.
on Sawmill. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay.
So now,
You.
your motion is to recommend to council that always stop signs be installed at the intersection of Center Street and Sawmill Road, and that signage be posted along Sawmill Road, that the speed limit is 50 kilometers an hour.
Okay, y'all heard her? Okay,
Yes.
all in favor? Carried. Okay, oh, opposed, if any?
again.
Oh, one, okay.
Thank you all.
Okay, that's carried. There you go. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
I used to pick up Belle from school every day, and I traveled that road.
Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, that this regular meeting of General Committee be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for Monday, August 13th, 2012, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
So we're going in camera now again?
You have to legislate to fit it in. It's formed, the way they get the courts are finding, if you don't legislate for stupidity.
Nobody pays help.
And doing this as they pass.
Yeah, you know, I was purposely like, hey,
That's what just driving, because they, that's
Do you ever drive
Right across the road from me,
if you get a speeding ticket and there's no sign,
Yeah, thanks, Al.
they'll say, well, it's a rural area.
80 as well.
I'm just gonna send that guy.
In contradiction
On
to
Welland
what
Road,
the Chiby Chap, they're interpreting it way differently.
the eastern part of our town and the western part of our town, Welland Road is 50. The sign is 50. Stopped on there.
Well, I know, in fact, you offered, the whole thing got done in like an hour, so how can you be not happy?
Come down, it's my
Cruise control, because otherwise, it doesn't make any sense that it's 50.
That's an area that needs to be addressed too.
Good night.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you came, that's good, I appreciate that. But, I mean, I don't know if anybody else received any on it, but whatever.
Okay.
Steve, see you later.
We can say, oh, we relied on the traffic control. Of course.
Moving right along.